Good. Um, so I did practice the whole like screen sharing thing with my PowerPoint ahead of time, and it is working when I do that. So hopefully now that we're actually in class, it will work and we won't run into that problem. The computer is all updated, so everything should be good. But just a quick announcement. I'm going to be emailing all of the online students with information about setting up a proctor for your exams because you will have to go somewhere to take it. Ideally, like you have several options. You could come to the actual classrooms at whichever location is closest to you if you can make the time that the class is at. It starts at 10:30. If you can't, then you'll have a week to take the exam, and so you can go take it at like any of the CLC buildings. And if that doesn't work, then we can work out something else. Even last year, I had some people where they worked all the time, so their boss had to be their proctor. But so basically, we'll work all of that out with you, but I want to go ahead and get that stuff set up before the first exam comes. So if you are an online student, just be on the lookout for an email from me about that.
Yes, and if you are an online student and you are going to come, even if it's just to one seated classroom, please let us know so we can make sure we have a copy of the test for you. So we don't kill trees unnecessarily.
Yeah, and just also like be on top of it. Like if you do typically have one proctor location that you go to, but for some reason for one test you're going to be changing where you go to, we need to be aware of that information because the tests online are going to have passwords associated with them. So we need to know where you're going to be taking it so that we send the right person the password and the proctor form. But so anyway, just be on the lookout for an email from me. And then of course, if you have any questions, just let me know. Does anybody else, Tom, do you have any other announcements or anybody have any questions, announcements, anything else before we get started?
Oh, just as a follow-up, I guess for like seated students, if y'all aren't gonna, if something happens and you have to make up a test because you're not here, you will be doing those online in Blackboard probably. So just plan accordingly.
Yeah. And along those lines as well, if you do need to like miss an exam, just let me know in advance, please. Unless it's an emergency that you didn't prepare for, obviously, because last year I had several people coming to me like a week after the exam that they missed saying that, you know, oh, I couldn't make it. And once it's already passed, there's not a whole lot I can do to help you. So just let me know in advance if you have something that conflicts with a test day. But other than that, so I'm going to go ahead and try the screen share, and hopefully technology will work with me today. Okay, it's up, so hopefully it stays that way.
So far, good.
Okay, so today we're going to be covering Chapter 3, which is a global overview of the livestock industry. We'll just kind of be talking about how different livestock industries are in the world, kind of where the major players are and things like that. Again, this is kind of a shorter section because you should enjoy this now, because once we really get into the sciencey stuff, then we will have a lot longer lectures. So enjoy these shorter lectures when you can. So with that, we'll just jump right into it. No, not this again. Thank you, because I hit something. I accidentally like clicked. Like wasn't letting me move from slide to slide. I don't know why. It works when I like just open a video in Zoom and then screen share. It works when I start moving slides, but for some reason when I do it with the actual class, it's not. But we'll try again. Okay. Might have been because I hit a button that time. So the objectives of this lecture are to give you an overview of the importance of animal production globally, so around the world. We'll talk about the importance of cattle to global animal production, the importance of pigs to global animal production, and then the importance of poultry. So people depend on animal production and processing for their livelihoods, as well as food, a high-quality source of protein, and then other things such as leather and wool. So as we've kind of already talked about in some of our earlier lectures, livestock and animal production is really important. So according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, livestock production accounts for 37% of world agriculture. So that's compared to the 63% that is in crop production. So we're going to mainly focus in on the livestock production for the purpose of this class because it's not a crop science class. But livestock production still does account for a little over a third. Do this. Oh my gosh. Okay, we may just have to do it like we did last time. Have you seen anyone else like have this problem, Tom?
He ain't in here right now.
Oh, he left. Okay. Just kidding. All right. Well, we will just do what we did last time because for some reason, I don't know why. It works when I practice it like before class, but it's not. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Okay. Can y'all kind of see that? Like, is that big enough for you to actually see the slides on the screen? Yes, no. Can y'all see that?
I can see it.
Okay. Like in the classrooms, can you see it or is it super small? It's good. Okay. Well, we'll just go this way then. So hopefully it won't lock me out. And then Tom and I are going to have to practice and figure out what's going on because it doesn't do this to me like when I'm just trying it without being like logged into the classroom. Okay, so as far as animal products consumption, the United States has a higher meat consumption than other countries. And that could be because we are a very developed country, and so we have a lot of access to meat. So increased consumption of animal products actually improves pregnancy outcomes in that country, and then growth and cognition, so like brain, like thinking ability in infants and children. So it is very beneficial to a country to have more meat that is available for consumption because it provides a good protein source and helps with a lot of different things. So there is competition for cereal grains between livestock and people. So as you probably recall from some of the earlier lectures, we talked about corn and how corn is obviously used as a food source for people, but it's also used as a major food source for animals. So it's sometimes said that livestock compete with people for the use of cereal grains, and corn is really a big one. However, livestock actually consume less than 35% of the grains that are produced around the world. So as livestock production systems become more efficient, the percentage will go down. And that is because, like I've kind of talked about, we're trying to make everything way more efficient so that the animals can grow faster on less feed input. And so as they become more efficient, then they shouldn't be using as much grain to get that same level of production. So the top animal production countries around the world are the USA and the People's Republic of China and Brazil. They're kind of like the top three players. And we'll kind of break those down a little bit more to kind of show you like which industry is kind of more important in each country. And so meat production as a percentage of global production is actually declining in Western Europe and Japan, and that's due to higher production cost. So when production costs go up, then your production is going to probably start sloping down because it's just not affordable and it's not effective to do it. So I'm not going to ask you to like know these numbers or anything like this. This is just to kind of give you an idea. So according to the FAO in 2014, around 315 million tons were produced worldwide, and that's tons of meat. So that is a lot. And the FAO estimates that by 2050, global meat production will increase to 455 million tons, which is going to be needed because, like I said earlier, the population of the world is expected to reach like 9.5 or 10 billion people. So those are pretty good projections for where that meat production should be. So as you can see on this chart, you have the total world production from the 1980s out to like 2004. that's about as far as your book goes, but I should probably update that. But the trend is going to basically be the same, even currently. So you see that China, United States, and Brazil are the big players, like I said. And I'm not going to go through each number, but you can kind of just see like the how many millions of tons each country produces, and how that kind of has looked over the years. So like I said in one of the earlier lectures, there has been an increase in animal agriculture, and this is due to the preference for animal products, which sounds kind of interesting to me now because I hear all these consumers that are like panicking about like antibiotic-free things and organic, and it seems like more and more people are trying to become like vegan or vegetarian. But as a whole, most people do have a preference for animal products. And so as the global economy grows, more people have more resources to buy food, particularly animal products. So as the world is becoming more and more developed, people are getting more money, and then they can afford to buy animal products. So why do they want to buy animal products? Why are they important? So nutritional reasons are a really big part of that because meat provides a high quality protein source. It has a lot of iron, zinc, calcium, which are minerals that are really important to the body, and then vitamins such as niacin and vitamin B12. So those are really main reasons why meat is so good for you. So why eat animal products? So in the U.S. Diets, they provide about a third of the energy that we need and 68% of protein, because protein is extremely important. 78% of the calcium, which is really good for like bone growth and muscle contraction and all sorts of different things. 39% of the iron, and then 42% of vitamin A, and 37 to 98% of the B vitamins. So if you're eating meat, you're getting a good percentage of your daily requirements for some of the minerals, vitamins, and protein and energy. So the proportion of protein and other nutrients coming from animal products is lower in developing countries. And that's because developing countries may not have access to the more efficient production systems that we have. Their production systems may not be as commercialized as ours are, so meat may not be as readily available to as many people. And so they have to find their protein from somewhere else, like maybe plant sources or things like that, because they don't have the meat availability that we do. So a little bit about beef and dairy production. There have been major increases in the global production of meat from cattle and milk. And there have been increases in all production systems. So that includes like extensive systems with range or grass-fed cattle, and pastoral systems, which would kind of be more in developing countries, intensive systems, and then mixed crop systems. And so one thing I would like to say is that there has been an increase in the global production of meat and milk, but especially in the dairy industry, what we're seeing currently is that a lot of dairies are having to shut down, and there's been so much so many improvements in efficiency that there's so much milk that the price has gone down, and actually a lot of dairy farmers are struggling to stay in production because they're not getting enough money back to pay for the cost of having their dairy farm. And so we're kind of seeing this shift from like a lot of smaller farms to fewer farms with more animals, and that's kind of being seen across the board.
And this isn't the first time that's happened. If I can jump in, y'all, you're too young to remember. It was back in the early 80s. They had a dairy buyout where the price of dairy got so low, the federal government stepped in and paid dairy farmers to get out of the business, shut down, and don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, just get rid of the cows, not take your cows and sell them to another dairy farmer where they're going to make milk out of it. It's get out of the business.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I forget there's one state, I don't remember if it was like Ohio or something, where recently I saw an article where like it was 49 or 59 dairy farms that actually closed like within the last few months. So yeah, it's been pretty intense. So beef, pork, and poultry meat each represent almost 1/3 of the meat that's produced and consumed around the world. Beef production is growing, and global production was up 11% between 1990 and 2005. And there's been an 89% increase in beef production in China. Oh, Tom, if you hadn't noticed, I'm having the same PowerPoint problem. that I had last time, and I tried it before this, and it's just not. It works before I like log on, but for some reason when I'm in, like when you dial me in, it's not working. So we might have to figure out why. I don't know if you have anyone there that can maybe tell me what's going on, but we can talk about that later. I just wanted to mention that before I forgot. So with world beef production, the top players are the United States, Brazil, China, Argentina, and India. And so, as you all know, there are a lot of cattle farms in the U.S., particularly out west, but there are also a good amount in Southside Virginia. My uncles actually have cattle farms. So milk production, the U.S. was actually the leading milk-producing nation for virtually all of the 20th century, but in 1997, India actually took over that title. So the USA is still the #1 producer of milk from cattle, and so the reason that India kind of took over is because India produces milk from other animals like goats and things like that kind of come into play there. So India is the top producer of all milk, and the USA is still the #1 producer of milk from cattle. So it's just kind of important to make that distinction.
Can I interrupt with a question again?
Uh-huh.
Your last slide, world beef production, India was #5. Did they say anything to you when you were going through school about how, the Hindu population, they don't eat beef, and that's the primary religion in India?
Yeah, I didn't remember if it was beef or pork.
No, it's beef because the cow is sacred to the Hindu.
Right, you're right. Yes. I'm
surprised to see that.
Yeah, I do remember that. I don't know if maybe they just do it. I mean, they must export it, I guess.
Yeah, but they're going to grow and export their whatever religious animal, whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes. Anyway.
I'll check that and see if that's like changed since these slides were made.
That's your homework assignment.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean the book is a little bit dated, so I'm gonna check that. That is a good point. I had totally forgotten that. That would be like the Middle East being up there for pork. The milk production is rapidly increasing in China, Pakistan, and Brazil. So it's increasing a lot. So the top players, like I said, India is #1 for all milk production. The United States is #2 for all milk production, but #1 for milk production from cattle. The Russian Federation is 3, Pakistan is 4, and then China is 5th. So India is the world's leading milk-producing nation. And so, it's also water buffalo. That was the other one I couldn't remember. So from 1970 to 2005, they actually had milk production from water buffalo as well as cattle. So this growth was due in part to successes of a series of cooperatives that market. And so the increase in milk production and availability has actually allowed for per person consumption to double to over a cup per day. And so milk is extremely important over there. So for pork production, there have been global increases in pork production, and there have been increases in all production systems, like I said, with cattle. So pastoral systems, which are going to be mostly in your developing countries, unless it's like a small hog farm that has some pigs out back. Most pigs in the country are going to be raised in a commercial setting, like in a building. Mixed crop systems, and then intensive industrial model of cereals or other high energy components. Traditionally, pigs were scavengers in villages and farmsteads. Pigs really can eat and grow off of just about anything. It's just if you want to actually maximize their efficiency, then you need to kind of have a specific diet for them. But you can have pigs in your backyard that will grow off of literally anything. So like I kind of just alluded to with a lot of the different industries, the current trend is more towards larger, high-efficient pig-producing operations. So that means that, like I said, there has kind of been a decrease in the number of farms, but an increase in the number of animals per farm. And so this has come about because there has been some integration with breeders and meat processors. And so that's kind of caused the industrialized model. So what that means, integration, is basically that a company will own pretty much almost all parts. It's better if they own all parts of it, but everything from the breeding animals all the way out to the processing plant. And they will own like their own feed mills to feed their animals and things like that. And so typically, the more integrated a system is, the more control that that company has over each phase of production. And so with poultry, they have been extremely what we call vertically integrated for a long time. And so pork production is kind of starting to trend that way. And a lot of pork producers are kind of going to the integration type system. But it's kind of a little bit harder in pigs. So there have been large increases in pig production in China as well as Southeast Asia, and increases in the USA and Brazil as well. And if you think about in Asian culture, pork is a huge staple of their diet. Like they eat way more pork than we do. So they have had really large increases in their pig production. Actually, now I don't know if you've seen this, Tom. Have you seen the pictures of, like, the pig farms in China now that are like multiple stories?
No, I haven't, but ooh, that sounds like a nightmare.
It's very interesting. I mean, there are some that are like 7 stories high. It looks like a pig hotel, and they have pigs on like all these floors. And so they are definitely out the pigs over there. But right now, just been hit with the African swine flu, which is really, really detrimental to pork production. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. But actually, we've had increases in the USA and Brazil as well. But because China is such a large country and they have such a huge population, they actually can't even produce enough pork to feed everybody and to meet their demand. So some of you may know this, but China actually owns Smithfield now. Smithfield Pork, a big group in China bought them. So like 80% of Smithfield's pork that is produced in the U.S. actually gets on a boat and goes to China. So a lot of pork eating happening over there. So the top players for pork production are, like I just talked about, China, because they've got the giant pig hotels that are just ridiculous. I don't know how to oh, there goes Trigger. See, I knew he'd do it at some point. There's another dog. So the top players are China, the United States, Germany, Brazil, and then Spain. So there's been a little bit of static production in Europe. It hasn't really been increasing all that much. And in Europe, when they kind of talk about pork production, they kind of think about it as the whole European Union. They don't typically really divide it out by country. It's kind of how much the European Union is making as a whole. So in developing countries, pigs and poultry production are often in densely populated areas near cities. And so again, notice that I said in developing countries. That's not really the case here in the U.S. because we're a developed country and we have more land. So typically your big farms and things are going to be outside of the city. Like I know from Raleigh, pretty much all of the farms that I visit are within an hour, hour and a half outside of the city. But in developing countries, this is easier because it enables ready access to the market with lower transportation costs because they don't have as far to take that meat to get it to market. So the problem with that is that you have bad adverse effects that can include pollutants and pathogens in these populated areas, and that can actually lead to the destruction of ecosystems. So it's better in one standpoint because you can get everything to market with lower transportation costs, but you have all of these pathogens and potential pollutants and things like that that are going to be close to people and in these populated areas, and so that's not really good either. But then also in the U.S., a big thing that's going on right now, especially here in North Carolina, is that even though pork producers are away from the cities, they're actually having trouble with their neighbors complaining and actually suing them. So Smithfield is being sued. They have I think it's up to 25 or more lawsuits of people out in the middle of nowhere that live near a hog farm that are suing and saying that hog farm is a nuisance. Have you heard about that, Tom?
Yeah, I was just thinking I hadn't heard as much about it lately. I was hoping things were dying down with that.
Yeah, so they're still in court. I think they still have to hear almost half of the cases, but so far they've lost. The farmers have lost every case so far. But they did get a new judge because the judge that they had was like super biased into agriculture. But it's been really crazy. Like I've been to a couple of ag rallies and like everyone has been like trying to, um, get it to stop because it's just like the farmers are doing everything that they're supposed to be doing legally. And the people moved there knowing that they were moving next to a hog farm. And now, even though the hog farmers have done everything that they're supposed to do legally, they're still losing. And so these farms are being shut down. And in North Carolina, you actually can't build a new hog farm. So, like, these people are losing their livelihood because they can't just move the farm. Like, you have a permit for that location. And if that location shut down, North Carolina law won't let you build another one. So Smithfield has already lost, I think, like 12 hog barns. And so they're going to have to find somewhere else to send them because otherwise it's going to really hurt their production. So it's been kind of crazy. It's like if anybody is interested in that or like want to follow that at all, if you go to like the North Carolina pork producers website, Pork Council, you can read all about that. It's just been nuts because if you like basically like if you have a farm and you have anything, you need to be aware of it because it's going to move over to chickens. It's already happened with poultry. Poultry just has a little bit more money than pigs do, than the pig industry, so they've kind of been able to settle things more quietly. But it is something to definitely be aware of if you have a hog farm or a chicken farm or really anything, that people can start complaining. So you want to make sure that you're following everything by law, and even then that may not save you. But yeah, it's been really interesting, that's for sure. But yeah, it's still going on, Tom, unfortunately. Like, none of my customers have been bothered yet, so they're just trying to kind of keep a low profile. They don't even have signs out by their farm saying who it belongs to because they don't want to get sued. It's been crazy, and it's going to kill the North Carolina economy because pork is like, we're number 2 in the country for pork production, so it's a really bad situation. Okay, now back off my little tangent there. So poultry and egg production, there have been the largest increases in chicken production. And I would say that is definitely true in the U.S. I learned a lot about that in my classes in animal science. Because if you think about it, a lot of consumers, chicken is like the number 1 meat that's consumed in the U.S. And part of that is due to people being health conscious, and chicken is a little bit healthier than like your red meats. And also chicken comes in a lot of better, like readily prepared forms. So you think about like chicken nuggets, chicken tenders, like popcorn chicken, chicken thighs. You have lots of options with chicken. And you can get chicken that's like pretty much almost already prepared for you. So that has really made it easy for the consumer. So the largest increases in chicken production have been in China. Again, you see that China is a really big player in agriculture. They have the largest population in the world, so they have to be able to feed all of these people. Brazil, Vietnam, and then India. So the U.S. increase in chicken production was about 38% in the 10-year span from 1995 to 2005. And like I said, this is due to growth in consumer preference for these products, as well as lower prices resulting from production efficiency. So when production is becoming more efficient, actually the birds are getting bigger, so that you're getting more pounds per bird, so you have more pounds going to market, and so that's able to actually lower the price for the consumer, and so that makes people want to buy more chicken because it's gotten cheaper. So the top players for chicken production are the U.S. and China, Brazil, Mexico, and India. So you always kind of see, like I said at the beginning, that the U.S. and China and Brazil are kind of always going to be your major players in any sort of livestock production. So poultry and egg production kind of continue. We'll move into a little bit about egg production. So egg production is also growing very rapidly. So over 10 years, it's grown about 39%. And Asian countries have had high rates of egg production increases. So there you see China again and India. And then egg production in the European Union has increased by 6% from 1995 to 2005. So again, like I said, Europe kind of goes in together, and it's kind of the countries that are in the European Union are kind of looked at as like a whole kind of system. So that is the last slide that I have for today. Again, this one's really short. Next, well, the one on Wednesday is not going to be this short. So enjoy these shorter lectures because the rest of them are going to be pretty long. Does anybody have any questions about anything? No? All good? Okay. Well, if nobody has any questions, then y'all have a good rest of your day, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Okay.
And
Bye,
Tom, before you go,